Hello, everyone on Patreon. Thank you so much again for your ongoing support. I'm here today with another video, which is the director's movies ranked video. This is based on the poll that I put out earlier this month, and the winner this month is Alfred Hitchcock in the 1960s. Which I will be ranking from my least favorite to my favorite. What's interesting is that we start to see Hitchcock slow down really in the 1960s. There's 5 feature films, and a lot of these are all, classics. They're all really, really well known. My least favorites, and I'm only saying this really because I've only seen it once and I know it not as well as his other films in the 60s, but Topaz is something I vaguely remember, and I remember finding it dull, but I don't want to say that because I think I haven't seen this in well over 10 years, but I'll have to say that's my least favorite. After that, I'll have to say Torn Curtain, which I reviewed on the podcast towards the end of last year. It's got its moments, of course, but it's ultimately falls flat. I mean, he had a lot of problems with Paul Newman. He didn't really want Julie Andrews. He wanted Eva Marie Saint. After this, you start to see him use stars a lot less. He just got sick of the salaries that they needed to be paid. It's got some good sequences. Of course, the scene where Paul Newman and that other woman kill someone. It's done in a really, you see how hard it is to kill someone, which is why he shot it that way, because he couldn't believe in movies how they made it look like killing someone without a gun looks so easy, and you see a real struggle for them to kill this person. But it's got its moments, but it's just ultimately falls flat. I just didn't find the suspense or the situation with the espionage and the cover-ups and to be all that interesting. So I'll have to say Topaz after that. After that, I have to say The Birds. I like The Birds. I know The Birds gets a lot of flack sometimes. Brian De Palma being, one of the biggest Hitchcock fans, really also continued the language of Hitchcock within film, within cinematic language of making it a visual experience and how to build suspense and so on and so forth. I know he doesn't really like The Birds, but I've always liked The Birds. I've always had an affection for it. There's some sequences that are really powerful, when you think of the woman, Jessica Tandy, finding the scene where she finds the dead body and his eyes have been gouged out, is that a word? Poked out, let's say, by the birds is quite powerful. Or even when Tippi Hedren slaps that other woman in the face because they start to blame her, like, for all the birds attacking because it didn't happen until she got there. I really like the visuals in it too. This was really up his alley, it's sort of a ridiculous concept, birds taking over the world, but he does it with this serious contrast, which makes it funny in a sense that, he's taking it so seriously. But I like it, but it's certainly not one of his best films. And then, of course, after that, I would say Marnie. I mean, I think, again, we see Tippi Hedren here, and it's again, more psychological, which he was interested in, psychological portraits of why this woman basically can't be intimate with another man. I mean, that's really what it's about. And everything towards the end leads to that, his relationship with Sean Connery. So it's quite interesting and eerie. Tippi Hedren, I thought was pretty good in it. He wanted Grace Kelly, I believe, and she couldn't, to come out of retirement to do it. But she was perhaps a little flat in moments, but I thought she did quite well. Sean Connery as well. He even has a rape scene in there, but it's done. It's again, in the days of censorship, he marries Tippi Hedren. She refuses to be intimate with him, and when they're in the bedroom, he pulls the robe off her and she just stares him down, and she just basically gives in, so you just see his face getting closer to hers. It's like a POV of her, and she's just very neutral. So that's quite shocking to see in 1964, but it's good. I've always enjoyed Marnie. There's a lot to discover. The details. His films are so visually detailed that you see more and more with every viewing, which leads me to, of course, Psycho. I mean, that's one of his best films, period. I reviewed it on the channel earlier this year, and again, it told a horror film told always with a sense of tongue-in-cheek. I mean, there's something funny about the fact that a guy who's living in a hotel who has this split personality with his dead mother, talking about these things. Sometimes when you watch Hitchcock's films, you're like, how did he get away with some of these scenarios? And often people would read his scenarios, like even Strangers on a Train, and think this is like lame. But again, he knew how to tell stories visually and emotionally, which he felt was the primary concern. How do you tell this story emotionally? And he just knew how to push the limits, and he liked things. He loved contrast. He loved things that were considered taboo or not norm, quote unquote normal. And here, of course, 45 minutes in, kills the lead off. I mean, no one, that's even now is like unheard of. It's very rarely done. I believe the last film I saw someone do that was A Place Beyond the Pines with Ryan Gosling. He's one of the main characters, and he gets killed, 40 minutes into the film, and we see that. But this is a classic Hitchcock film where you have a MacGuffin, which, if anyone doesn't know, is what sends the protagonist off in the story on whatever the goals they have. And ultimately, it goes in a totally other direction. And later on, the MacGuffin is revealed as to what that character was going towards or what they wanted. And they wrap up that mystery in the end, but you don't care by then because it's gone into a whole other territory. So that is really a device to get the story going, to put it in motion. And in this case, it's the money. What happened to the money that Janet Leigh stole that was at the hotel when she got killed? Where did the money go? And in the end, the police tell you what happened to it, but you don't care because now it's gone into this murder. It's gone, and it started with this romance of someone trying to get money for her boyfriend so that he could pay off his father's debts and run away with him. And it goes into a whole other story. So this was very inventive at the time. And of course, this is a film that is constantly analyzed and is so much fun and is so visually striking and was quite daring at the time and terrifying. I actually worked with a man I say worked because my part-time job is, because of the pandemic, is still not open, at a big concert hall. And he's in his early 80s, and he saw this when he was 23, and he said it terrified him just to see. He's the only person I know who's seen it in the theater at the time. It was absolutely terrifying. He said people were screaming. Of course, now we're desensitized to this sort of horror film because so much is now shown with blood and stuff like that. So to not even know it still is scary when you don't see something, in my opinion, that is scarier, but it doesn't have that same reaction to be, terrified and keep you up at night. But I remember when I first saw it, the scene that did spook me was at the end when Vera Miles finds the body in the cellar and turns it around and it's just her skeleton of his mother, and then he's in the doorway with the knife and dressed up like her, and the music, Bernard Herrmann's score, comes on. I always found that spooky. I remember seeing it for the first time and having a jolt. But that is certainly my favorite of the 1960s. So there you have it, folks. Just a recap: least favorite, Topaz, then Torn Curtain, The Birds, Marnie, and Psycho. So there you go out of the 5. Hitchcock directors video ranked August 2021. Hope you've enjoyed this. Thank you so much, folks, and I will be back soon with more content. Take care.